A few months ago, we told you about a proposed merger between Comcast and Time-Warner. It would amount to the nation's second largest cable company buying up the second largest. Consolidation in the media and communications business isn't funny, though, to Senator Al Franken. The Democrat and former Saturday Night Live writer and performer is leading the way on Capitol Hill, trying to block this deal.
I got over 100,000 people writing me saying, don't allow this to happen.
It's not just consumers, by the way. It's also big media companies. There are CEOs of big media companies that own lots of cable channels that are very concerned about this merger. Absolutely. But we haven't heard them speak out.
Well, that speaks volumes about how anti-competitive this is. You know why they don't speak out? They come to my office. They say, this is off the record. Don't. And then they talk about how it's going to be anti-competitive.
So you can't tell us who's visited you. You can't name names then.
No, they're afraid of retaliation. I mean, doesn't that tell you everything you need to know?
Franken seems to be fighting this fight all on his own. Doesn't seem to have a whole lot of support in Congress right now on this one.
No, he doesn't. I mean, I watched this interview on Sunday morning, and I found it fascinating that he was bringing up some real serious issues that we discussed on this show back when this was first announced, that it sort of does take away some of the competitiveness of the environment. And the fact that he was willing to go on that show and say, hey, I've got executives coming in and talking to me, and they're concerned about this legislation, and they're concerned about being retaliated against. What bothers me is that he doesn't have any of his colleagues to see this, and I'm wondering if that has a lot to do with, the campaign finance reform and the fact that now corporations are people and there's so much money in the system.
And you can watch the full interview on our links blog on KBIA.org. And what was interesting was how it was set up on reliable sources on CNN. Brian Stelter went through the members of the Judiciary Committee and listed how much those members were getting in campaign donations from Comcast.
Right.
Sizable amounts in the 5 figures, some of them.
Noting that they have 100 lobbyists on Capitol Hill alone. What I think is interesting is that this atmosphere of non-competitiveness, according to the numbers that you'll see in that interview, if you go to it, I think Franken cited that 70% of the nation only has 1 or 2 choices in a cable provider anyway.
And only 1 when it comes to broadband.
There you go. And there is where the real battle is. There may be an unbundling, or there may not, of cable sooner or later. That whole over-the-top sort of revolution that a lot of our students are sort of already imbued in may take place sooner or later. But I really think it's in the web where all of this really comes home to roost.
And what really bothers me, it goes back to that chart that Brian put up, was the fact that you have this kind of influence on Congress on this issue. Think about all the other issues that you have corporations who are basically, they're paying for influence. I'm not saying that they're actually paying for votes, but they are paying to get a seat at the table to be able to talk to these senators and congressmen about issues such as this that could have a great impact on the everyday lives of Americans.
Now, this is an issue that's been important to Al Franken going back a couple of years. Not so long ago, he also spoke out against the Comcast and NBC merger.
Right.
So the idea of keeping communications industry competitive has always been one he's been front and center on.